How you doing, YouTube? This is Will from Real Development. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a very quick, easy, simple T-handle. And I have one I already put together. And all a T-handle is used for is basically a very quick and easy way to have a cheap alternative to a kettlebell. And it's also just a nice little piece of equipment to have lying around too. It's got all kinds of purposes. You can use it pretty much for every exercise that you use a kettlebell for. It gets a little wonky when you try to do like presses and stuff like that. But it's great for kettlebell swings, and I'll show you everything you need to do it and to put it together. So let's get to it. Okay, so what you're seeing in front of you is one assembled T-handle and one of the components and parts you'll need to make a T-handle or makeshift kettlebell. So all of this stuff that you see here, the pipes, the fitting, or the T, the anchor, and even the locking pliers here, total cost under $20 is what I spent for all of this. You can't get a kettlebell even used for under $20. And the beauty of this is you can make it weigh pretty much whatever will fit on this long pipe here. Now I have another one I assembled, and this one, the biggest difference you see is the pipes, which are called nipples, are shorter by about an inch. The ones I'm going to use for the one I'm making today. This one I basically use exclusively for wall deadlifts, which I'll show you an example of the exercises I use this particular piece of do-it-yourself or IED. Like I said, this is probably the easiest piece of equipment you can make yourself. The only thing that may be a drawback for some people is that you are going to need some sort of plates, whether you use Olympic or standard. I happen to have a huge collection of standard plates that I got years ago, and I've just been able to hold on to this long. And I use mainly Olympic plates for all my general lifts, but it's great to have a use for the plates finally. Let's just put it that way. So what you're going to do is you're going to want at least a 12-inch threaded nipple, 3/4 inch pipe. Fits right into the standard plates, most standard plates. Now the problem with standard plates is they used to not be regulated, I guess you could say. There was no industry standard for how big they could be. So for instance, I do have a couple 25s that will not fit on these pipes. It's ridiculous. And then all my other 25s fit, no problem. Regardless, you're going to want one 12-inch threaded nipple. And two, these are, how long are these? I just set them a minute ago and I already forgot. Two 4-inch threaded nipples. And then one T, which is just a 3/4 female threaded T. One anchor. There's another name for this, I can't recall it right now, but a lot of people just call these anchors. And it's threaded in the inside. It's a female threaded anchor. Super glue is optional. I like it and I'll show you where I use it. And one piece that I don't think is optional, if you're going to use this as a kettlebell, is one pair of locking pliers. I picked these up at Harbor Freight for like $3. But for these purposes, you don't need anything expensive. You just need something that's going to lock. Some people recommend using spring clips. To me, if I'm swinging something 40, 50 pounds over my head, I'm going to want something that's locked in place. I'm not going to let go of these weights and possibly hit me. And I'll show you how those work. So your first step is going to be threading the two pieces into the sides of the T's like that. Now I like to use some super glue here and here because I'm not going to be taking this apart, ever. That's just how it is for me. Like I said, the super glue is optional, so you don't have to super glue it in there. But another thing to think about is that this is going to be swung up and down like that in your hand. Once you get these tight, the odds of them actually coming loose are pretty low. But it's still a good idea to me to super glue them in there just to make sure they don't go. And you can use super glue, thread lock, whatever you have handy. So if you never use super glue because you're not from this planet, then you know you really don't need a lot, and the stuff goes on clear and thin, goes on pretty quick, and it dries very, very fast. So just like that, just some dabs there, and then just put that right in there, screw it in. Because I'm using super glue, it doesn't have to be super tight. This isn't going anywhere once it dries. I just got a little bit on my bench there. That'll peel right off, luckily. That's one. That's two. It really is that simple. And again, for my purposes, I'm never going to be taking this apart. So the next step is putting in the 12-inch nipple into the T. And again, I'm going to use a little super glue just because I'm never taking this apart, so I'm not really worried about disassembling it ever, anything like that. Right in there. And again, that one doesn't even have to be very tight because I'm using super glue. If you don't use super glue, I recommend clamping it and twisting it in there just so it's tight. You know, you'll always pretty much always be able to get it taken off, but just make sure it's tight in there. And so now this is not getting taken apart pretty much by any means. Even if I wanted to take this apart, it would not be easy now because everything's super glued. The only piece, if you decide to use super glue, that you should not glue in, because it just does not make sense to me, and I've heard some people say, go ahead and glue that part in, but that to me doesn't make sense, is they say you can go ahead and glue this piece on once you have the weights on there. Go ahead and glue on the anchor. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me because odds are you're either going to go up in weight, or if you do a different exercise, you might have to go down in weight. So, you know, think about it. You're going to want to be able to change your weights out, change your plates. So this part's easy too. You're just putting it on there. Slide it right on, just like you're sliding plates on a normal barbell. Nothing to it. And then the last step is just screw that on the bottom there. And that's not going to go anywhere. Don't worry about that, trust me. Once you got that on there, you go. You have your basic kettlebell. And at this point, if I wanted to do wall deadlifts with this, I would, no problem. Because I'm not doing very fast movements, it's not getting swung around, nothing's dangerous here. But since I am going to be using this for kettlebell swings, I'm going to just take some locking pliers, and I like the ones with the needle nose, they call them. Because you see that mouth opening there, it's a little bit wider than the standard one. And just put it right there on the bottom, make sure it's a little snug, and clamp it on. And now the weights are solid. Nothing to it. And I'll show you some examples of some exercises to do it. And that's it, everybody. That's how easy it is. And you have your own basic homemade kettlebell style T handle. As you can see, you can do kettlebell swings, no problem. There's no fear of it flying down and hitting you in the head or anything like that. You're just basically working on controlling the weight, just like if you were using a dumbbell or a real kettlebell, that sort of thing. Couple little notes I have to say though is one, when you're in, first note is when you're in the hardware store looking at these nipples to buy, these threaded nipples, which is what they're called, try to buy black piping whenever you can. For your purposes, what you're doing here, do-it-yourself fitness equipment, it doesn't matter what color the pipe is, it doesn't matter if it rusts a little bit, anything like that. But in most cases, the black piping and even black anchors are going to be cheaper than the stainless steel versions. I'm not sure why, I'm sure it has something to do with it rusting, something along those lines. Doesn't matter, just buy the black ones when you can, because for these purposes, you don't care, and in my opinion, it looks a little sleeker. The other note is on the two versions I have, you see one has shorter handles than the other. The longer handled one, I use that one basically exclusively for deadlifts, just because it makes me feel better having more to grab onto. My hands sometimes slip off the sides of the smaller handled one. And when I'm doing deadlifts of any kind of weight, which about the highest I can go is about 150 pounds, just because it's only 12 inches long and that's as many plates as I can put on it, it makes me feel better knowing I have a full grip with every single finger, you know what I mean? And I think the last note I would say is on the handles, because they do have threads on both sides on the nipples, feel free to put like duct tape or even like plasti dip on them, just so it's a little more comfortable. Some people may not have calluses on their hands. I work with everything. I work all the time on all sorts of things, and I work out a lot. And that's given me a lot of calluses on my hands over the years. My hands are pretty rough on the front, or is it the back? It's the front. The front of my hands are pretty rough, so the threads don't bother me one bit, no matter what I'm doing with them. But some people may not like the threads. So if you're, having your friends use it, or let's say you're a trainer like I am, it may be helpful to wrap the handles in something like duct tape. You're going to want something that absorbs water or beads water, because you're going to sweat using this. You don't want to use like medical tape. That's just going to fall apart eventually. And that's it, everybody. It's very quick, very simple. I'm going to edit this down to as little bit of time as I can, because this really isn't complicated whatsoever. Anybody could make this. You could have your child make this if you really wanted to. But if you're wanting to get into the world of kettlebells and do just a few exercises, and you happen to have some plates lying around, then this is a great option for you. And if you're not saving money on your fitness equipment, then what's your excuse?